All right. Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining our very first Toolbox Tuesday of 2023. For those of you who joined us last year and you have now been renewed for 2023, you will notice that these sessions used to be called Lunch and Learns. They're now Toolbox Tuesdays because these are really designed to kind of build your proverbial toolbox. All of these are designed with your feedback, with information that we're seeing on our end that grantees might need a little bit extra help on. So please stay engaged in these Toolbox Tuesdays when you have the opportunity. They are optional each month, and I try to keep them on the first Tuesday of each month. However, if there's a holiday or something like that, sometimes they do need to change. But these are really designed by you. So at the end of today's session, I will ask you for some feedback on other topics that you might request or need more information on. And we use that feedback to then design future Toolbox Tuesdays to make sure that these are always relevant to you and your teams. So I really want to thank all of you for joining today. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Christine Flynn. I'm a grant manager here with the Office of Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. And I also get the fun opportunity to organize these Toolbox Tuesdays and host them. So last year we had some really great ones with guest speakers that came in and talked about transition relationships, how to apply to their registered apprenticeship programs. We had individuals come in and talk with us about how to do marketing strategies specifically to pre-apprentices. So we really had the opportunity to kind of explore a lot of different topics. So again, if you are interested in any specific topic, either we can present on that if it's something internal to Illinois Works, or we are happy to go outside of our team and find experts that can help you succeed in your program. But today we're going to be talking about interviewing. So the process of interviewing specifically here within the Illinois Works program. But before we begin, I just want to get a little bit of a sense of who is in the room with us today. So using the chat, if you can go ahead and write out your name and what organization you're with, that will really help me understand kind of, do we have new grantees, renewal grantees? So if you want to go ahead and use your chat feature now. All right. Hi, William. Welcome. And William is with Richland Community College. He's one of our newer grantees. Johnny Robinson with Metropolitan Family Services. Welcome back, Johnny. Janet Perellis is with Metropolitan Family Services. Kyle Milliken with Rincon. Welcome. Jay Dukes with CAPS. Welcome. Merrick Niche. Welcome back, Merrick. Viangela with EDDR. Alejandra with Metropolitan Family Services. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Vanessa, hi, welcome. Also with Metropolitan Family Services. So today we are going to be talking about why interviews are important, specifically for our pre-apprenticeship programs. We're going to explore how to build rapport within those interview sessions. So really starting to build that trusting, kind of inclusive relationship with your potential participants. What the requirements of the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program are, how to score the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program interview sheet. We'll discuss some probing questions, so how to get more information from your participants. And then we're going to be talking about weighing respondent answers. So really trying to understand, once that interview is done, once the score has been calculated, How do you kind of review and analyze those answers to make sure that you're accepting individuals into the program who are really serious about a career in construction and the building trades? So let's go ahead and explore why interviews are important for our pre-apprentices. So the first big reason is it really gives that pre-apprentice the opportunity to explain to you and your team what they're passionate about. So this might be a conversation around what trades they're interested in. It might be that they have a family background working in the trades and they like their father or mother or cousin, want to go into being a carpenter or being an electrician, and this also is a good time for that individual to provide any pertinent information about their background. Maybe they have experience working in construction. Maybe this is their first time they've gotten into this space, but they're really interested in it. So it just allows them to kind of have a space and have a floor to be able to explain to your team why they want to move forward. Second, it also allows them one-on-one time if there's any specific information that is pertinent to them. So, if they have a specific situation they're dealing with, maybe they're going to need transportation assistance. Maybe they, have to come in late certain days, but they're wondering about makeup hours. It just gives them that space where they don't feel like anyone outside of that space is, listening to them or making a judgment on what they might be asking. It's just an opportunity for them to have that connection with your team to get all of the information that they need. Because as much as we're interviewing them, they're also interviewing us. So they want to know, what can this program provide for me? What will I learn? How will this help me long term? The third reason is it demonstrates the seriousness of the program. So all of our programs are only a few months long, and their goal is to transition individuals into long-term careers. It is not just the goal of finishing the training program. It's not just to help them get a job. It's really to help them grow into these careers. So by demonstrating early on that this interview is important, it demonstrates that this is a serious program. We want individuals who are going to show up, they're going to meet all of the steps of this program, and they understand what it takes to go into this space. And so if you have an individual who, doesn't want to do the interview or doesn't really do a great job on the interview, they've demonstrated that they're not really engaged in it, that's a red flag for your team to see that maybe that person's not going to take this program very seriously. So next, it also prepares them for any registered apprenticeship programs that might have interview requirements. So, in any registered apprenticeship program that you go into, any employment that you go into, there is a chance that they will need to go through some sort of interview. And so it's setting them up really early on to understand that if you're going down this path, there's going to be requirements like this that you need to work through and that you need to understand how to navigate to be successful in this space. Next, it provides an opportunity for that rapport building. So I know some feedback that we've gotten is that participants get really nervous around coming into an interview. And I get that. I think probably every single person on this call has gone into a job interview and has been nervous. And so it's part of kind of our work to make sure that that individual feels comfortable in that space. And part of the way we can work on that is to build that rapport with them. So start to make them feel like right off the bat, we want them to be there. They have a space there. We're there to help them. We're there to support them. So if they're feeling anxious, if they feel like they might not succeed in the program, that's an opportunity that we can really start talking them through what supports we can give them in this program to make sure that they're successful and to start to kind of build that trusting professional relationship. And finally, interviews are vital for our programs because it ensures that the applicant is a match to the program and the industry. So we all know that there are certain metrics that exist in our program, And bringing an individual in who is not a good match for the program is going to hurt your program's metrics overall. But more importantly, it could really hinder that participant's long-term success. So, a really good example of this is one of the interview questions is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? If you have a participant who is saying, I see myself owning a restaurant, that's not someone that you want to admit to this program. And not because what they've said was wrong or, bad. It's because this is not the career path that they want to go down. And you're doing a disservice to them by not referring them to another program that might help them achieve that dream. So not only is it kind of taking away from the program overall as far as their metrics, but it could hinder that individual's long-term success because it's not going to help them achieve the dream that they want to go into. So, just something to think through as you are walking through these interviews. So, next, let's talk about building rapport. So, I think most of you were in the Grantee Manual 2 session where we talked pretty extensively about what it means to build rapport. But for those of you who are not able to make that session, rapport is the creation of a professional relationship that features mutual understanding and connection that cultivates a trusting relationship between grantee staff and participants. So sometimes that can seem hard to kind of operationalize, and a question comes up a lot, but what does that look like on the ground? So I wanted to provide you a couple of examples of ways that you can start building rapport in these interviews. So the first one is to be prepared for the interview. So obviously, show up on time, make sure that you have the interview sheet ready to go with that individual's information. If they had to submit some sort of interest form, if they had to give you a resume, you have their application, make sure you have that information with you. So it's not like they're coming in and starting from scratch. Because, of course, we know this is not the first interaction they've had with your team. They've already gone through a pre-screen, they've already gone through an application. So you really want to make sure that they understand that you are prepared for them and want to create that space for them. Next up is actively listening. So obviously, a lot of times, in these interviews, we're seeing individuals are engaging with their participants, but then they're just kind of transcribing what that individual said. But with active listening, it's really ensuring that you are engaged in that conversation. So it's, making eye contact. It's maybe shaking your head so that you show understanding. But it's also engaging with them through asking about more information. So that leads us into kind of that third one of asking probing questions. So if someone gives you an answer that is pretty general, so someone might say, why are you interested in this program? And the individual might respond and say, well, a friend told me about it, it sounded interesting. What we're looking for is not just to get that answer. We want to understand what about this was interesting to that person. And so that shows them that you're engaged in their answer, you're engaged in listening to them, and it's also getting you more information to understand if this person's a good match long term for this program. And then finally, be aware of your body language. So this is something that I think, especially when we're really busy, sometimes we are not thoughtful about. So it's ensuring that, if you are, in person and you're taking notes on your computer, that your computer's not sitting between you and that individual. It's making sure that, you're not checking your cell phone every couple of minutes. It's making sure that you're making eye contact, that you're, not sitting grumpily with your arms crossed. It's these little things that we don't often, or it's easy to kind of go under the radar because we're not thinking about them. But so much of our communication comes from our body language. And so we really want to make sure that this impression that we're giving to this participant is one that is welcoming and inclusive. Because something that we always have to remember in these programs is the second they interact with you as a single staff member, you become representative of that program. So if they have a negative experience in those interviews, if they feel like you weren't prepared when they showed up, you kind of were distracted and looking at other things or not really listening, you didn't ask any follow-up questions, you like had your arms crossed, things like that, they then see that as the whole organization. And so we don't want to be turning individuals away in this space where we really have the opportunity to make a good impression with them. And building this rapport can also help kind of ease that anxiety and tension that these individuals might feel coming into these interviews, or they might feel just exploring this new career path. If you have someone who is switching from a different career, there's going to be a lot of nervousness around that. And they want to have a positive experience when they walk in because it ensures that they will continue on with that career path. So I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions about building rapport, about why interviews are important before we move on to our requirements. Feel free to unmute or put a question in the chat if you have one. Okay, I'm not hearing anyone and I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and keep moving here. So let's talk about the requirements of Illinois Works as far as interviewing goes. So just for reference here, I've put section 5 of the grantee manual. This is where all of our interview requirements are. But I'm going to hit just kind of the top few here to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page around these basic requirements. I really highlighted these because these were based on a lot of questions that we got from grantees last year. And so I want to make sure that I'm hitting on these again this year. So number one, each applicant who meets eligibility for the program must be interviewed. So we expect that there is an interview done with any applicant who has met all of those basic eligibility items. So their age, they live in Illinois, they're interested in construction, they have a high school diploma, and they want to be interviewed. Obviously, we're not forcing anyone to be interviewed. So if they want to engage in that space, they want to move on in the process, we expect that an interview is offered and completed with them. Number two is 2 staff members must interview the participant. So I know I've gotten some questions this year. Is it okay to use, someone who is an instructor? Is it okay to use like a third party contractor that you're working with? That's totally fine. So those individuals just need to be documented in your staffing plan somewhere. But it's important to have these 2 individuals because it allows the participant to get different perspectives on the program. It also allows them to get additional information. So if you have someone who is focused on intake and supportive services and you have someone else who's focused on instruction, if that participant has questions about instruction, that individual is going to have more ability to get the answers they're seeking if there is multiple people in that space with different backgrounds and different experiences. This is also really important because part of scoring is we take that average score between these 2 interviewers. And so it helps us ensure that individuals are not just really loosely scoring or really strictly scoring. It ensures that individuals are kind of getting that kind of fair shake as far as their scoring. Number 3, interviews can take place in person via web call, so Zoom, Google Meet, WebEx, whatever you have, or they can be on the phone. So they do not have to come into your space in person. We are fine with them doing a web call or phone as well. Number 4 is you must use the Illinois Works interview sheet. So this is something that we're really being strict on this year because we want to ensure that every single graduate across the state is being asked the same questions, they're being scored on the same scoring range, just to ensure that, no participants feeling like if they go to one grantee, they're being asked different questions, and that if they go to another grantee, we really need to create kind of that consistency across the network. So all of our participants are going through the exact same eligibility process so that no one can claim, this grantee didn't allow me in, but they had a different scoring sheet than another grantee. So we really need to be careful about this. So please ensure you are using the Illinois Works interview sheet that is available in the appendix of the grantee manual. It's also available on the Illinois Works Partner Guide on the full resources page. You can download a copy from there as well. Number 5 is the Illinois Works interview sheets must be completed by those 2 staff interviewers, not the participants. So these are not worksheets for the participants to complete. Interviewers must write the answers based on the interview that they've given. Number 6, interviewers must each score the participants' answers, and then the average of those 2 scores will be the participants' interview score. So their interview score is based on the average of those 2 interviewers. And then finally, interview sheets must be uploaded to IWRS, and those interviewer names and their average scores must be added to IWRS as well. So again, I'm going to pause here. Are there any questions about the requirements that I just walked through? Feel free to unmute or put it in the chat.
I got a question real quick. This is William.
Hi, William.
We just finished our interviews yesterday, and I have a meeting this afternoon to do our 2 average scores and whatnot. But I have a background. I was a union sheet metal worker for 28 years, went through the apprenticeship program and all that. And I have a question about the age requirement is must be 18 to get in as an applicant. Now, is there a cutoff age? Because I had one gentleman that is 69 and a female that is 60 that both applied. So I'm looking at as if this is to get people into an apprenticeship program, if you're at that age, you're going to retire before you get out of your apprenticeship pretty much. So how do we, I noticed, I went through the grantee manual, there was no cutoff age, but some unions in our area has an age range for apprentices.
Yeah, that's a great question. So our program does not have a cutoff age. However, going through this interview process, going through the application process, those items are things that you would want to counsel them on, is just let them know, this might restrict your ability to get into an apprenticeship program because some of these apprentices do not have, or they do have an age range, and it's just counseling them on that. That wouldn't stop them from going through our program, but of course it's going to be something that it's going to be harder for them to transition into a registered apprenticeship program. So it wouldn't make them ineligible for us, but it would be something you'd need to counsel them on and make sure they understand that their opportunities might not be as broad as another individual's.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. All right. So I'm going to move on now to scoring. So on the interview sheet, you will see up at the top, there's a set of directions, and all of this information is provided to you on the interview sheet, along with our scoring range. So there are 10 questions on the interview sheet, and each question can be scored from 1 to 4. So 1 means poor, 2 is average, 3 is good, and 4 is excellent. So you can see up here at the top, the minimum score someone could get if they get all 1s would be 10 points. The maximum they can get is 40 points. So that's assuming they get 4s on all 10 of those questions. Now, to get into the program, to be eligible for the program, They need to get a score of an average score of 32 or above. So if they happen to not get a score of 32 or above, but you still really think this is an individual that should be in the program, that really wants to be there, that's really going to work hard, that's something that you can admit someone below that threshold. But generally, what we see is when individuals fall below that threshold, they often don't complete the program. So it's something to kind of really be wary of, and make sure that there really are some mitigating factors that might have affected that individual's score before admitting them. So again, the minimum is 10 points, the maximum is 40. And then that threshold is 32 or more to get in. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do an example. So I'm going to need some of your participation here. So again, you see our scoring range. But in this example, we are going to pretend that we just got finished with an interview. And we interviewed Sonia, and she was interviewed by 2 staff members at her local Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program. Interviewer A provided Sonia with a score of 40, and interviewer B provided Sonia with a score of 37. What is Sonia's overall interview score? So if you can put that score in the chat for me. 38.5. Yes, thank you. Yes, Selena. Yes, William. Good job. Great. It is. It is 38.5. So that is where Sonia sits. Now, based on that score, was Sonia accepted to the pre-apprenticeship program? Yes or no? Selena says yes. Johnny says yes. William says yes. Okay. What do other people think? Was she accepted or not accepted? So she got a score of 38.5. Janet also says yes. Okay. Angela, great job. Yes, Sonia was accepted. So she got that score of 38.5, which means that she answered most of those questions really well, and she was accepted into the program. So we're going to do one more example here. So our next example is Mitch was just interviewed by 2 staff members at his local Illinois pre-apprenticeship program. And interviewer A gave Mitch a score of 30, and interviewer B provided Mitch a score of 27. What was Mitch's interview score? Please go ahead and put that in the chat. So we got 28.5. Melina also did 28.5. All right. Anybody else? Okay, Johnny, Kyle. Good. Good. Yes. So I had 28, but 28.5. So now the question is, was Mitch accepted to the pre-apprenticeship program? So being at a 28.5. Okay, so Felina says not accepted. William says no. Angela says no. Rochelle, no. Yep, Mitch was not accepted. Kyle says no, 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 no. Yes, correct. So Mitch was not accepted to the program based on his score. Now, again, if Mitch had some mitigating circumstances, your team feels really passionate that this person could be successful in the program and you guys want to move forward with enrolling them, you certainly can. You just want a case note why that individual was accepted with a lower score. But again, it's something to really talk about internally, because oftentimes when we see someone kind of falling below that score threshold, they've really flagged on things that are really important around, do they want to participate in the program? Do they want a long-term career? So those are just things to think about. So now we are going to do a little bit more practice on scoring. So we are going to shift over to Mentimeter. So if you all can head on over to your browser and go to www.menti.com. And oh, thank you, Gia. Gia just went ahead and put that information in the chat for you, along with the code and a direct link. We are going to look at some of our interview questions, and we are going to give a score on these interview questions. So once you have gone ahead and gotten over to Mentimeter, if you can just raise your hand in WebEx so we know that people are headed over there. It looks like we have one person who is in Menti right now. Thank you, Johnny. All right, we got William, Tina. Awesome. So what we are going to do is we just have five examples here. So I've taken our actual interview questions and I've combed through actual interview responses from our participants last year. So I'm going to read the question, and then the answer will be on the screen of what that participant said. And I'm going to have you tell me, do you think that that answer was a 1, which is poor, a 2, average, 3 is good, or 4 is excellent? So you just choose whatever score you think is appropriate for the answer that the participant gave. So it looks like we still only have 8 people now. We have 9. Okay. So please head over to Mentimeter. So we have about, let's see, 14 participants. So we're looking for a couple more here. Okay, all right. We are up to 10. So let's get going with our Mentimeter. So our first interview question is, what do you know about construction pre-apprenticeship programs? And our answer was, it will help you get into an apprenticeship program plus learn all the safety requirements. What do you think that person should score? Should it be 1, poor, 2, average, 3, good, or 4, excellent? All right, so it looks like we have, all right, so it looks like 4s have it. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great answer. So I think somewhere between that 3 or 4. So this might be a good opportunity to maybe ask a probing question, get more information from them, but definitely a good answer. It shows that they know where this is going to lead. They're already thinking about where their next position might be. So our next question is, what are some of your strengths and weaknesses as it relates to your career? So this participant said their strengths were drive, they were goal-oriented, kind, family-oriented, honest, detailed, and their weakness was also drive. So sometimes they need to slow down. Again, let's go ahead and score that. As we all know, sometimes our greatest strengths are also our weaknesses. So I feel like that's a pretty honest answer there. All right, so we have a score of 4. Yeah, great. So again, this person has really provided a lot of information. So certainly this would sit at that 3 or 4 score. It's a good answer. Again, maybe something you want to ask them a little bit more information on. So next up, we have, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the answer to that one, the individual said, in school system, have my own thing with a side job. Where would you score that one? All right, so we have a score of 1, a score of 2, score of 3. Okay. Yeah, so I would agree. It would definitely be on that lower end. So again, this might be something you want to ask them more questions about. Do you see yourself when you say in the school system? Is that, a future construction career? You're trying to get a construction management degree. What does it mean to have your own thing with a side job? But when you just initially read this, it seems like their trajectory is maybe not in the trades. So you would score this one probably a 1 or a 2. So sitting somewhere in that range, unless you can get more information from them. So next up, our question is, from your perspective, what qualifies you as a candidate for this program? And the answer for this one, they said, I have discipline, good work ethics, intelligent, good skill sets, and willing to complete the program to reach my goals. Where would you score this individual? All right, so fours are taking an early lead here. Threes, here we go. Two people had said three. That's seven at four. Yeah, great. Again, this would be a good answer. So, a 3 or a 4, it would be in that range. And I think what's really important to see here is that, this scoring is somewhat subjective, right? It's based on kind of where we're coming from. And again, that's why it's so important to have that kind of averaging, because you're going to have some people who, push for that 4, and then others who go for the 3, or some who push for the 1 or go, and others go for the 2. So it's really making sure that individual's kind of weighing out somewhere in the middle. All right, and then our last question for this section is, as part of the requirements to be accepted, you must commit to attend 80% of the training hours and 100% of the student support service hours. You must also have at least a 70% passing rate on program tests. Do you foresee any problems completing these requirements? And the answer was, I'll try. So where would you score that answer? A 1, okay. A 2, okay. So ones and twos are kind of even here. All right. All right. Yeah, we're seeing again ones and twos. So, it's not extremely detailed answer. I think it's honest. But it is something that might be a red flag of, this person might not be someone who's able to attend all the time. They might not complete the program. Again, I think a trend in all of these is we want to understand more. What might be a barrier to you being successful in these spaces? What services might we be able to provide? Is it transportation? Is it childcare? Is it not feeling confident with the academic side of things? How can we provide that support? So that is the last one for this section. So thank you all so much for participating in that. And I'm going to ask you, just keep your Mentimeter up, because we're going to be doing one more Mentimeter session here. And I'm going to go ahead and get back and share my screen. All right. So next we're going to be talking about probing questions. So as I just said on almost every question is, this would be a great time to ask a probing question. So a probing question is an open-ended question. Sometimes it can be a statement that nudges applicants towards revealing more information about their interests, passions, or situations that will help the interviewer learn more about them. So these types of probing questions can be something like, thank you for sharing your strengths and weaknesses. Can you tell me more about how you might use those strengths and weaknesses in this program? So it's really set up to, not just automatically say, why do you want to do that? That might put someone on the defensive, but it's making sure to frame them in a way that it's thanking them or showing appreciation for that answer or understanding for that answer, and then asking for more. So the next example is, you said you were interested in a career in construction. Again, we're confirming that we were listening to them. Can you tell me more about what you hope that career looks like? So here, not only are we showing that we're listening to them by making that first statement, but then we're asking them to expand on where they see themselves. So this is a technique in a lot of different spaces where we're trying to get them to imagine what their future might look like, where they might be again in 5 years or 10 years or down the road generally in their career. And that starts to reveal a little bit more information about what are their true interests long term. And then finally, it's, will you share more information with me about your passion or interest in carpentry? So again, in this instance, we've identified that this individual has said they're interested in carpentry. and we want to get more information from them. So what are they passionate about? Why are they interested in this? What has driven them to that specific trade? So again, these are not probably necessarily revolutionary, but it's thinking through, making sure that when we're asking these questions, it's not just what do you like about it or why do you think that? It's really making sure that they understand we've listened to what they've said and now we want to know specifically something more. We're digging a little bit deeper to get that information. So we are going to practice making some probing questions. So let's switch back over to Mentimeter. So this is why I had you not close it. If you did need to close it for some reason, just go back over to www.menti.com. That information's still in the chat from Gia. And we are going to, again, look at our interview questions and some real life answers from participants. So the first question we have is, why are you interested in the construction industry? So our answer was introduced to the trades by a friend. So it looks like we're doing some scoring here, so feel free to go ahead and score that. But then if you can also, in the chat, if you can let me know, so we're getting these 2s and 3s. So in the chat, if you can let me know, what might you ask that individual? So they said they're introduced to the trades by a friend. What questions might you ask them to pull more information from them about why they're interested in this pre-apprenticeship program? So yeah, Viangela, any particular trade? So is there one trade you're interested in? What caught your attention? Yeah, Alejandra. So what caught your attention about the trade? So your friend introduced you to the trades. Tell me more about, is there a trade you're interested in? What caught your attention about that? Yeah, great probing questions. All right. So again, I think that this scoring is also dead on. So this is going to be a 2 or a 3. So, okay, that's great. You were introduced by friends. Let's get more information. So next up, our next question is, why are you interested in this pre-apprenticeship program? And our answer from our participant was to be well-rounded. So again, you can score here and then just let me know in the chat what might be a good probing question for this. All right, and it looks like Tina also shared, would you share with me how you were introduced to the trade for our last question? Also a good probing question. So maybe, asking about that friend who introduced them, what are they in the trades? Would you share with me how that friend works in the trades? So now again, for this one, what probing question might you ask? So you're asking them, why are you interested in the pre-apprenticeship program? So you might ask them, how did you find out about our program? Yep. So trying to get a little bit more clear on, why are you interested in this? How did you find out about it? What might be another probing question that you can ask them? So William says, what particular skills are you looking to become well-rounded in? Absolutely. Rochelle says, explain being well-rounded. Absolutely. So those are great. All of those are great probing questions. So trying to understand, for you, what does it mean to be well-rounded? What skills are you looking to become more well-rounded in specifically? So absolutely, great question or great probing questions here. So our next question is, the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program's primary goal is transitioning students to construction apprenticeship programs. How does this goal align with your long-term career goals? So how does this goal align with your long-term career goals? And our participant said yes. So again, go ahead and score and then tell me in the chat, what is a probing question that you would try to get more information from them about, how their goals align with the program. So absolutely, that would be very likely a one on this one. It did actually not answer our question, so we definitely need to follow up with a probing question for them. So if you want to go ahead and in the chat, let me know what might you ask this person to follow up with them. So Tina says, how would this program help your future or your future in this career? Absolutely. What goals do you have? Absolutely. So turning it back, kind of asking that question in a different way, So maybe they have not defined their goals for you yet. So how would their goals align with this program? Absolutely. Both of those are great probing questions. All right, let's move on to our next one. So the question is, are there any potential barriers that could hinder your progress in the program? And our participant answered no. So go ahead and score. And then if you can just again in the chat, send me some potential probing questions that you might ask. So this question or this answer isn't necessarily a bad answer, but what might you ask them or what might you follow up with on this answer? All right, so we got kind of split between two and four here as far as scoring. So again, what might you ask them or is there any information you might offer them to pull out any additional information? So Rochelle says, provide examples of potential barriers, then ask if those would present a problem with them continuing. Absolutely, absolutely. I think that is a great way to go. Sometimes when we're asked, are there any potential barriers? We just kind of answer no because we think, yeah, I want to go into the program, nothing would stop me from doing this. But then when someone really starts to break down, so William again is saying, are you sure you have no issues with transportation, with childcare, with tutoring? So giving those examples that are common to your participants and say, we often see that some participants, struggle with transportation. They may need assistance with childcare. Are you a caretaker? These are the things that, we often see with our participants. Is that something that might stop you from coming to the program or might hinder you from coming to the program? So absolutely, all of those are great, great probing questions. Johnny's also saying, are you comfortable learning in a class setting? Are you able to get up early? So again, yes, these are some potential barriers, even outside of those support services that we have to think about with our programs. So our last question is one of the core values of our program is building a community of collaboration. This includes demonstrating respect and professionalism. Please explain how you have demonstrated respect and professionalism towards others in the past. So our participant said, experience working at Home Depot where I de-escalated conflict and involved upper level management while remaining professional. So go ahead and score that and then put your probing question into the chat. What might be a follow-up to this? Do you have questions about this a specific instance? What might you ask this participant? All right, so yeah, three or fours, absolutely. I think that's the right scoring range there. All right, so William says, what sort of conflict did you have to deal with? Absolutely. So what was that person de-escalating, an upset customer? What was happening? What was the de-escalated situation? Absolutely. Asking for specifics. Maybe they can give you an example of one time, or they can tell you, you know, several instances where this might have happened. Is there anyone else who has an additional probing question? Biangela, great. Yeah. How did you remain professional? So obviously we're getting into the definition of what it means to be professional, right? We have this kind of wide range of understanding. So it's getting into what does that participant think professionalism is? How important is being professional in the trades to you? Absolutely. Again, we are training them to go into a career, into a profession. We want to make sure that they uh, understand that this is going to be something that, is going to be long term. And part of that is that professionalism. So absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for these probing questions. That is the end of this exercise here. And then I just have one more slide for you, or one more topic for you, where I want to just talk about kind of that analysis at the end of the process. So, whoops. So once you've done your interview, you've scored that interview, oftentimes, we're going to see that some answers can be red flags that that person might not be successful in the program. So I wanted to walk through some examples of answers that we've seen on interview sheets that were kind of red flags for the programs to say this might not be someone who long term is going to be successful in this process. So some of those red flag answers might be, in 5 years, I see myself owning a restaurant. So I used that one at the beginning of our session today because I think it's just so important to, when someone's telling you they do not see themselves in the trades in 5 years, that is something that should be a red flag for you, because most registered apprenticeship programs, you're looking at 4 to 5 years, which means if they are not seeing themselves in a registered apprenticeship program in that timeline, that's not someone who should continue on in the program. The second one here is I really enjoy working inside of an office and don't do well in outside environments. Obviously, many of our trades are going to be in the elements. That's a person who, maybe they want to move more towards project management or something like that, where they're not in the elements all the time. But it's, again, something to flag. Another one is I don't enjoy physical work. I'm better suited to an office job. If they're talking about going into carpentry, electricians, being a laborer, that's not going to be a good path for them. And then finally, construction sounds interesting, but I don't really know if that's what I want to do long term. That's a pretty big red flag that that person is not really committed to the program, and the likelihood that they will kind of are just trying it out and then will walk away is pretty high. So again, you want to be really conscious that you're accepting individuals into the program that are really serious about going into the trades long term, because that is the goal of this program, is to get these individuals into registered apprenticeship programs and into careers in construction and the building trades. So thank you all so much for joining today. Are there any questions that I can field for you right now? Feel free to unmute or put your question in the chat if you have one.
Hi, Christine. This is Rochelle. I do have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's say you have a employer who is not a registered trade, but he owns his own business, been doing it for years, but
Mhm.
he's not, a registered tradesman, and he does rehabs and all of the other great things. Would that be considered for these students? um, a measurable gain if they were to become employed with a contractor like this?
Yes, absolutely. So that would fall into likely a secondary transition. Now, if this is someone who would be willing to take on a student or more than one student and help sponsor them into a registered apprenticeship program, that might be a way to get into that primary transition. But any sort of employment would still give them that secondary transition. We'd still, track them and be, excited that they're getting into the construction field, because that's ultimately the goal, is to get them into that space. But as far as your metrics, that would be a secondary transition.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I want to thank all of you for spending an hour of your first Tuesday of the month with me. I really appreciate it. I will be back next month, and that is, let me grab the date for you. So I'm actually going to be doing this on May 9th, which is the second Tuesday of the month again. So May 9th at 10 a.m. And in the interim, I'm going to go ahead and put a survey link in the chat for you. If you wouldn't mind just taking a quick minute, filling out that survey for me, there's an option to put some ideas for future Toolbox Tuesdays in there. I would really appreciate it. I want to keep these relevant to all of you so that they're really helpful, that you can take these skills back and apply them in your spaces. So again, thank you so much. I put that survey link in the chat. I'll also be emailing it to you, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.